I'm in Menorca, Spain for the strongest chess tournament in the world right now. Tomorrow, a tournament with over 50 grandmasters begins, and I'm seed 201. I played an international master for my first round, and let me tell you, after 15-20 moves, this game goes off the rails. It started off, I have the white pieces, my opponent has black, and after e4, c5, this marks a Sicilian defense, and better yet, it marks after a6, a Najdorf Sicilian. I have 3 out of 3 so far in our chess journey against a6 OTB. I go with f3. In a previous tournament, you might have seen me play this sneaky move rook g1, but I play f3 this time, which is just going for pretty much main line, e5, knight b3, and now bishop e6. Last tournament, I beat a really strong player also in this line. I played bishop e3, the same line that I played in my last tournament. And now my opponent goes with an early h5. Reckon, in my last tournament, my opponent played bishop e7. And this just drove me to play queen here, and now h5 was played, and I played this very nice move order, bishop e2, and finally castled short after almost, telling my opponent I'm gonna castle long. But after this early h5 by my opponent here, it's not so clear. I still went for the same thing, queen d2, knight bd7, and now you see the move order changes. Now I go with bishop e2, and it's actually inaccurate because this castling plan coming with this knight d5 doesn't work as well. So my opponent just goes with rook c8 now. And the difference with rook c8 and not having a bishop on e7 is that now this move completely contains a further c4 push. So that if I were to play knight d5 now, which in the game in Reykjavik, the link will be in the bio, was played flawlessly by the way, I played knight d5, after takes, knight b6, now I cannot play c4 because knight takes c4. And if I want to take this knight out, it will cost me a bishop pair and the very nice dark square diagonal. So I'm not going to do that. So now my knight d5 plans are completely compromised. What I should have done is right after h5 is played, I have to go knight d5 directly, which I learned. And after takes, bishop here, now I save a tempo with bishop d3, bishop takes, now queen takes, and I avoid playing a queen d2 and then queen takes d3, basically saving me a full move. So I missed that. It's really a subtle mistake, but after rook c8 it becomes evident because now I castle short going into the plans that I had from my last game like this that went really well. I have to keep saying that so that we know that it did go well. Bishop e7 is played now, and now I don't have knight d5. I completely played myself. Knight d5 still runs into these things. So following that logic, I go with rook ac1 now, which is just a weird looking move. And the idea, is if castles, now I go knight d5 and bishop takes, now on knight b6, now I have c4. But I'm playing an international master that's almost a grandmaster of rating, and he sees right through this. He goes knight b6 immediately. Now, not only is knight d5 completely blocked off, but it's just immediately blocked off, and there's just no c4. So very, very interesting, knight b6 is played. Typically in Najdorfs, even on a castle long situation by me, after knight b6, I'm very fine with a knight a5, not that the queen is not taking up this square. And this prevents a lot of knight c4 things, but this is incorrect. So knight a5 is a mistake because my opponent can go with d5 here. Oh, queen c7 first, pardon. I went with rook fd1 and now d5. d5 ideas work. There's nothing I can do to prevent it. It's defended by 3 pieces. Black is opening up the center, cracking it wide open. I take with the knight, knight takes, and now I take, knight takes again. And now I realize I'm completely busted. I'm in trouble. There are 2 threats on the board. Bishop b4, which is a fork between my queen and knight. And there's also knight takes e3. And after I take back this bishop, well, here there's bishop c5. Oh, this one, this one here, that would pin my queen and my king. And I was like, no, I'm already lost here. And thankfully, I find a resource that can save both of these threats with one move. And that is the move knight b3. Knight b3, and now after you take, I can take with my queen, and we're taking up the c5 square. If you take my knight, I can't take back with any pawn, right? because then bishop c5 and I lose my queen. So I have to take back with the queen, and that's the resource. I take back with the queen, save myself from a bishop c5, and I'm fine here. The only problem is I calculated through this line and I was like, oh my god, there's bishop g5. And now I lose a pawn. I just lose a pawn. My rook is forced to move off the defense of this c2 pawn, and then queen takes c2 is going to happen. But after the game, we both agreed that this was losing a pawn. I looked at the engine. On rook b1, queen takes b7, and white is doing fine. If you take my bishop, I just take your rook. And the reason I miscalculated this, I did see queen b7, but I still imagined a bishop on e6 defending this rook, and this being still completely over because now black could have taken my bishop if a bishop were here, but the bishop was traded off in that variation, and I failed to calculate that through. Like, keep in mind, I calculated that from here, so we're like 6 moves in. But that doesn't matter. My opponent takes first and then plays castles. Doesn't take here because it's not good finally. It's actually not good. So castles now, and I've given up a huge advantage. The opponent has the bishop pair, which is good in and of itself, but in a Sicilian as well is just so nice for black. And it happens to be so that both bishops are absolutely devastating along these 2 diagonals. Look at that. 2 adjacent bishops on adjacent squares, so squares that are connected, are just so strong. And you can see it with the influence there on the board. My king goes to h1, getting out of these things long term, and just getting out of this weak diagonal. I have to reckon with the fact that I don't have a dark squared bishop, and this is the dark horse of the position. It's just absolutely there to get me, and I have to play against it. So king h1, limiting the liabilities. The next 2 moves after king h1, which is also the best move, are best moves. So I play really, really cleanly here. Rook fd8, I'm repairing my position. I trade once to get pressure off of c2, and then I play bishop d3. I close the file on this rook, which now feels a little foolish of this rook, and now I axe my bishop on this diagonal. The third thing that I love about this, well, I also defend c2, so my rook can like breathe. And the fourth thing that I love about this is that I also open the file on this pawn. My bishop gets out of e2, and now I can press with like a rook e1, and this pawn all of a sudden doesn't look as solid as it did moves ago. And there's no resource here, right, with the bishop c5. So this is why we prevented things like this with king h1 first. You can see the prophylaxis coming to life in a position like this, in which I play bishop d3 and my queen is not defending my knight anymore, which was crucial. f5 is played. My opponent, after rook e1, wants to go with bishop f6, but there's a problem with this. I can activate my knight now because the bishop is off of c5, and I'm attacking this bishop. The bishop's only move is to stay on this f5 pawn and go to c8. So now I have a lot of things with bishop c4 check, king has to move, knight here, queen here. I was looking at all these things for so long. None of it really works. Even bishop here doesn't work. I was looking at f4, getting the queen off of my knight, and then there's like, here there's bishop e7 and I'm losing a piece. I was looking at this for so long, finally decided against bishop c4, and I go with b4 in a panic because you look so far down in a variation that suddenly none of it works, and you have to deal with that fact and just go along and play your game. And I was feeling here at 19 minutes left very nervous because I'm down for sure on the board and I'm down on time. I have 19 minutes left. It's really a squander, and b4 is an inaccurate move. A better move was apparently bishop f1. Yeah, okay, b4 is normal. So b4 accentuates the pressure, the defense of my knight here, and on b6 I can simply take this pawn on a6. b4 is a solid move, but although I give some squares like on c3, my opponent goes with king h7. And then I think, and I don't have that much time, so not many more thinks. But after king h7, I just realized, wait a minute, this king just hops into this pin. And I believe I have g4 here that can press. g4 is a very risky move. Nobody should do it. g4 compromises the entire safety of my king. Doing it would be crazy to say the least, beating all odds. And sure enough, I play g4 after 4 minutes of thought. And now I'm down to 14 minutes in what is a time scramble. I mean, we're like 20 moves in. So like I'm completely in a time scramble. g4 is played, and it's a crazy line. I believe that my opponent missed. After takes, my opponent wanted to go queen c6 first with check, and once my king has to go to g1, black just wins after d4 and bishop d4 with a pin. And I calculated through this. I was so happy that my opponent had missed this. Thankfully for white, there's just check. And my queen evades this pin here, checks the king g8, and now my bishop can evade the threat on d3. I just check the king once again. And here the best move is g takes f5. And here the white pieces are doing fine, it's equal. So that is quite incredible. My opponent saw this and played the crazy move b6. b6, pressuring my knight and putting a time limit on this position. I can't do whatever I want here. I want to go queen h3 because it's check and it gets out of this all, but after calculation, check, king here. If the king goes up, by the way, it's checkmate immediately on h5. And so on check, king g8, I have check again, king here, and you realize, wait a second, white has absolutely nothing here. Despite the king being in the center, I have nothing. So I had to figure out how to play against this. So here instead I play queen h3, check, king g8, check again with bishop c4, king f8. I know that this check runs into king e7, so now I go with g5, and now queen c6. Reckon, if you take with the bishop, queen h8 check, and now the bishop is off the defense of g7, and I simply win. After king here, I can go queen g6 check, very important to take the bishop with check and keep that tempo. And so here after g5, my opponent throws an in-between check with queen c6 check, my king moves, and now my opponent takes the knight. I have to recapture the bishop, but it's really important that I don't do it now. If I just take now, queen takes, and okay, b takes c5, and it doesn't really materialize. The bishop is just too strong, and I see things like queen c6 coming in the future that are very strong as well. So I go with queen h5 first to threaten checkmate. And here you can't really do anything. If you go queen c7 to defend, I can take this bishop first, threatening checkmate in 1. And then if you take, now I have queen h8 check, king e7, check, king here, check, king here, and it's absolutely checkmate on e6. So here my opponent played queen e8, although rook d7 is also very good and even winning for black, but queen e8 is a slight mistake. Now I go with queen h7. The better move was queen h8, king up, takes, king takes, and now check, pawn here, check, which I saw all of this, but after queen g6 I stopped calculating because I'm trading queens and it's losing. But apparently I have this in this position, which calculating 5, 6, 7 moves down, it's hard to find. And here this is still losing, minorly losing for white, but it's playable. And that's the only line that is playable here. After queen e8, queen h7, I'm threatening check, but I'm not threatening more. Oh, I'm threatening to take here. It's actually pretty good. My opponent plays king e7. Bishop e6 also wins. I was very confident about this line though. Takes, threatening mate, and then I thought, okay, takes, I can just trade bishops, and then I can go queen h8. The problem is king e7, and the king just escapes like this, and goes like here. And this is, oh wait, king e7, oh wait, no, sorry, it's queen f7 here. And if queen takes, now black is just better. But I saw this line, I was really ready to play this actually. On bishop e6, I was fine with this. I was really fine with this. And we both talked about this during the game, after the game, pardon. So my opponent goes king e7. I have 45 seconds on the clock. I have to play something. So now I go with b takes c5. I can take this bishop whenever. If you take, I just take on g7, right? So I'm going for the fact that I have time. B takes c5, but this is a crucial mistake. I have to take this with check and go into this line to trade queens and win the pawn on e5, as I showed. So I take on c5, my opponent now rifles back with rook d4 and threatening 2 checks on a check and my bishop, 2 things. So I have to go bishop e2, I have to find this, or I take here first. So I take here first, and now I have to go bishop e2. I have to mitigate the threat of rook g4, but I missed this. I have 6 seconds left on the clock, I had to play. So I go bishop f1, check, king up, and now black is the one counterattacking, queen c6. threatening to take here on c5 with check, and I don't have any checks on this king. It's so tough. I had to go queen h3 here. So on check, queen e3, and I'm down 2 pawns in an endgame, completely losing. King e2, queen b5 check, I go king d2, and now queen b4, king d1, and now a silent move, bishop b7. A lot of things missed by black in those last 5 moves, but this is all right. This is still winning for black. This is threatening checkmate in like 4 moves. I have 12 seconds on the clock at this point. I have to play queen h3 to defend against this checkmate, but I played queen h8 because I wanted to, you know, threaten some perpetuals in case this didn't work. But now my opponent has bishop f3 check. And here if I play rook e2, it's mate, right? With the same way that if I play bishop I played rook e2. Yeah, if I play bishop e2, it's completely losing as well. It's the same mate. Like, I played rook e2, check, king c1, and I know I'm getting mated in 2. After king b1, check, king here, and this is mate 2 ways. I had to resign after queen a3. Tough game. I felt like I was coming back into this game after g4, which was the best move in the position. g4 is the best move in the position, but still a little bit better for black. What I missed is that after takes, and then b6, I have to play g5 here. Instead of queen h3 check and bishop here, g5 first is crucial, so that if you take my knight, I have check, king here, and then I play, king here is the crucial variation, because now this is winning, right? We saw a variation like this in which when the queen doesn't defend this bishop, I can just take, and on king here, now this works. And I was really hoping for this in the game, because this is a way for the bishop and queen to just completely destroy. This is mate in 4, I believe. Check, this is mate, and this is mate as well. Queen f6, and this is mate. So there were options. This was a possible line in the game, but if check first on c6, I can go king g1, and this is actually not that bad. Taking my knight, takes, and now queen takes e5. That's the best way to play, and this is close to a draw. After queen takes, rook takes, pawn takes, now I can have bishop takes here, and it's actually very, very close to a draw. The major mistake I made is after queen h5, queen here, I have to find that line that we all talked about with check, this, and then queen here, and trade queens, and go into that slightly losing endgame. Anyways, I lost my round 1. I am paired up against an 1800 tomorrow. Let's see what I can do with the black pieces. Thank you so much for watching.